actually met on in a bar playing pool. It was just blocks away from here on Kent Street and Manhattan Avenue. There used to be a little bar there. It's not a bar anymore. It's a Polish restaurant.
The worst day of my life. I mean.
I was born in the neighborhood, but my husband was born in Pennsylvania.
I was 10 days old when I was brought here. And actually, I went to high school with her brother.
We used to go crabbing on the Newtown Creek. This is my son catching a blue crab there. We know enough not to eat them, but a lot of people take them home by the bucketfuls.
This is from Harper's Weekly, 1881. And so they knew. In 1881, they knew.
Spring of 2002, our boat captain was down with our investigator, and they're down in the East River, and they saw Newtown Creek, and they literally said, "Well, we have time. Let's send the boat up there and let's see what we can find." And so we headed up Newtown Creek, and sadly enough, we found a horrible situation. We found oil sheens floating on the surface of the waters. There were abandoned cars, literally, that had been driven over the bulkhead and dumped into the creek itself, so it's piled on top of each other, floating garbage, dead animals, you name it. It was about the most horrible thing we'd ever seen. Oil was seeping through these gaps in the bulkhead and basically pooling up and very thick and behind this temporary boom that they had installed. It's much better now. You don't see these kind of sheens anymore, but that was pretty horrific.
I just can't stop looking at it. It's just one of the most fascinating places in the world. It's amazing to me that it's this close to the center of the universe and nobody knows anything about it.
Before the oil spill was discovered, commented on, before the politicians and the EPA and everybody else got involved, there were generations of people here who would just mysteriously get cancer, die, and there went Uncle Louie. And that nobody knew why people here were getting sick. As it turns out, it's because the world's largest oil spill underlies.
My mother and father, even though they lived long lives, they lived till they were 83, they both died from very rare brain diseases, as did their dog. My mother died from CNS lymphoma, basically a rare brain cancer. My father died from a disease called progressive supranuclear palsy, and their dog died from a brain disease called encephalopathy. As I said, all three of them are rare things.
All right, I'm just going to pull it up. You'll see what's on the end of the pole, okay? But it's going to take a lot of digging. I mean, I was literally, if that pole had been 10 feet longer, I could just keep pushing it. The bottom is very soft. We've done core samples in here early on to see what was in the bottom, and there are a whole bunch of places that when you take the core sample out, the sediment out of the core, oil runs out of the sediment. So the bottom is really bad.
There's spots on the creek that I can't even describe it. It looks like black tar practically, the water, and it's just like sitting on top of the water. It kind of reminded me of Texas tea on the Beverly Hillbillies,
What EPA is planning on doing at least at the early stage, because they've been reticent as far as committing to an action plan until they finish their further studies. They're talking about removing about 20 feet of sediment from the bottom of the creek. That sediment is, we call it black mayonnaise because of its consistency and its color. It's like a devil's brew of petroleum, human waste, coal tar, naphtha, every industrial chemical you can name.
Basically, Exxon took over Standard Oil, and so they own the property that most of the oil spill is under, and most of which resulted in the oil spill. And so we sued Exxon. About 3 years later, in 2007, the New York Attorney General's office filed its own lawsuit against Exxon. Our suits were joined together. We started settlement talks, and actually last week we settled both of our cases and got what we think is a very good settlement.
This community is really, you know, when they get together and fight, they're a kick-ass neighborhood.
Would be 2 power plants.
Yeah.
The tracers that have been put in this water by scientific crews over the years have showed up as far away as Long Island Sound on one side and the Verrazano Narrows on the other. This is New York's problem. This isn't Queens' problem. This isn't Brooklyn's problem. You know, this is the entire city. Why don't the people in Manhattan know and care about this?
This is our home. You know, we lived here all our lives. We have a lot of ties here. Even if we wanted to move, we're a low-income family. Where would we move?
All these cities, the back door was the water, because it was where the waste went. It was where the rough commerce was. And as the city developed, it turns from looking inward, away from the river, it turns towards the river. Here we are. We started late. We're transitioning late.
Since we settled with ExxonMobil, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I don't care. One of the stipulations was that since they're giving us all this money, we're not supposed to see anything bad about them. You know, so it's a lot of hush-hush stuff. You know, now, a friend of mine, Tommy Stagg, on Sutton Street, 25 to 30 people died of cancer, right in the middle of the plume. And you can't tell me it has nothing to do with this.
It's an exciting time for the neighborhood. There's many other things that are going on around Newtown Creek and in the area that we hope we hope we've reached a turning point. We're going to get to the point in the next few decades where this area is much cleaner and the people have a better quality of life.